Okay, let's dig into this one. Imagine this scenario. You've got the Starship Enterprise, and they're on what's supposed to be a totally normal, run-of-the-mill check-in mission.
Right, standard procedure.
They're heading into orbit around planet M13, the goal. Just look in on this isolated research team, an archaeologist, Robert Crater, and his wife, Nancy. Sounds simple.
Yeah, just a routine medical exam. Required by the regulations for folks stationed way out there. Seems straightforward.
But almost right off the bat, things get weird, and then they get deadly fast.
Uh-huh. This isn't just about filling out medical forms. It spirals into, well, a desperate struggle for survival.
And against an enemy that's just baffling, something that seems to attack from the inside, playing on memories, desires, even old relationships.
And what's really cool about this deep dive is how we're approaching it.
Okay.
We're building this entirely from the ground up, using only the raw source material from the incident itself.
Exactly. We've sifted through everything, captain's logs, bits of conversations recorded in those logs, the medical reports, security details, basically everything the Enterprise crew had as things were actually happening.
We're sticking only to those official records and personal notes that got captured. No outside speculation, just what the logs tell us.
Precisely. We want to take you through the whole thing, the initial briefing, what happened when they first landed, those completely bizarre findings in sickbay, the confrontations.
The terrifying moment they realized the threat wasn't just on the planet anymore, but on the ship.
And that final desperate showdown. All of it, based strictly on these reports and logs you shared.
Our mission here, really, is to piece together what went down on M13, what caused those crew deaths, what was this thing they encountered.
Using only what's in those records. We're trying to understand the mystery just like the crew had to, as the information came in bit by bit through their own documentation.
And you really do get that sense right from the start that this isn't going to be smooth sailing.
Oh, yeah. The logs mention Kirk and Dr. McCoy beaming down, and okay, it's framed as routine medical examination, right? But there's this immediate personal angle. Nancy Crater, the wife, she's an old flame of Dr. McCoy's.
Ah, so not just another checkup for him.
Not at all. It's personal. And the logs actually capture that tension really well.
Do they? How so?
You can almost feel McCoy's nerves about seeing her after, 10 years? There's this recorded dialogue where he's clearly uncomfortable.
Right, what?
He talks about picking flowers, like bribing girls, wondering how awkward it's going to be. He's second-guessing the whole thing. He says things like, "We walked out of each other's lives 10 years ago. She married Crater. And then, for all I know, she may have forgotten me completely." He even asks himself point blank, why did I let myself get into this?
Wow. So he's really carrying that history into the situation.
Absolutely. And the log entry specifically states they had beamed down to the planet without suspicion. That little detail just highlights how quickly things unravel once they actually arrive. That initial sense of routine just evaporates.
And it happens basically the moment they materialize, right?
Yeah.
That's where the sources show things get seriously strained.
Oh, immediately. They meet this entity that they think is Nancy Crater. But it's clear almost instantly that something's deeply wrong with how different people are seeing her.
Wrong how? Like, she looks ill.
No, not ill. It's her appearance. It's not just, a matter of opinion like, oh, she looks tired. They are literally, physically seeing different people when they look at her.
Whoa, okay. That is weird.
This is where the logs flag the first huge anomaly. There's a crewman, Darnell, with them. He sees this Nancy and has this immediate, really strong reaction. Recognition?
He knows her.
He thinks he does. He's clearly flustered, says right to her face, "Ma'am, if I didn't know better, I would swear that you were somebody I left behind on Wrigley's Pleasure Planet."
Wrigley's Pleasure Planet. Seriously.
Yeah. And he's about to say more, like, "You're exactly like a girl that..." But Kirk shuts him down quick. Little less mouth, Darnell.
Okay.
But the key thing the logs note is Darnell's absolute certainty. He recognizes her, but as someone else entirely, from a completely different place that has nothing to do with M13 or Nancy Crater.
So he's seeing someone tied to his own personal history, let's say.
Seems like it. And then you get Dr. McCoy's view.
The old flame.
Exactly. Driven by that past connection. He sees the entity and boom, it looks to him exactly like the woman he knew 10 years ago.
Like frozen in time.
Pretty much. He calls her Nancy, blurts out, "You haven't aged a day," describes her looking precisely like a girl at 25.
25. After 10 years, married to Crater out here.
Right. And later, in a log entry or maybe just reflecting, he admits he may have been looking at her through a romantic haze. His memories, his feelings, they're clearly shaping what he's seeing.
Okay, so Darnell sees a Pleasure Planet girl. McCoy sees his love interest from a decade ago looking 25.
Mm-hmm.
What about Kirk?
Kirk adds another layer of confusion. He also sees Mrs. Crater, but his description in the logs is much more, well, grounded, normal.
How so?
He notes, she's a handsome woman, yes, but hardly 25. Later, he estimates her age more realistically, maybe early 30s. He says she doesn't look a day over 30.
So hang on. Darnell? Pleasure Planet girl.
Meh.
McCoy. Nancy, age 25. Kirk. Nancy, early 30s.
All looking at the same being at the exact same time.
Okay, that's really messed up.
It's not just a trick of the light. The log specifically says they were totally unaware that each member of the landing party was seeing a different woman, a different Nancy Crater.
So perception itself is fractured here, right from the get-go.
It's the first huge clue in the records that the normal rules just don't apply on M13. It's a massive challenge to their basic understanding of, well, reality, identity, perception, everything.
And while they're trying to wrap their heads around that, Professor Crater shows up. The real one, or who they think is the real one.
Well, the man identified in the reports as Professor Crater, and his reaction, captured in the logs, immediately hostile, defensive.
Not exactly welcoming.
Not even close. No small talk. He just demands they leave. Flat out refuses the standard medical checks, which are regulations, remember?
Right, they're required.
And he only insists on one thing. They need additional salt against the heat. Just salt tablets.
Salt, okay. That seems oddly specific.
It does, and the reports note his, total disdain for their sense of duty. He clearly wants them gone.
How does Kirk handle that?
Kirk, being Kirk, focuses on the procedure. He pushes back, says firmly, what you want is unimportant. What you will get is what is required by the book.
So instant conflict. Regulations versus whatever Crater's hiding.
Exactly. This clash between Starfleet rules and the professor's almost desperate need to be left alone.
And this tension leads somewhere bad, I take it.
Directly into the first tragedy, the whole Bora plant incident, which results in crewman Darnell's death.
The guy who saw the Pleasure Planet girl.
The very same. The logs detail it carefully. Darnell just collapses, dies suddenly.
It's like that.
Yeah. And the entity appearing as Nancy gives her account, says she couldn't find Bob. The professor was walking back, ran into Darnell, wanted to tell him she wasn't offended by his earlier comment, and then noticed he had this Bora plant in his hand. According to her, he bit it and just fell over dead.
Convenient?
Yeah.
A poisonous plant.
Seems like it, right. But the logs note Kirk's immediate suspicion. He apparently looks at her like, you don't believe me. He's not buying it.
And McCoy, what's his take?
McCoy suggests maybe they should postpone the exams, deal with the death first, but Kirk overrides him. His focus shifts entirely. He says to Nancy, curtly, I've just lost a crewman, Mrs. Crater. I want to know what happened.
So the mission's completely changed now.
Instantly. Tragically. It's gone from routine checkup to a full-blown death investigation.
And that investigation back on the Enterprise is where things get even stranger, according to the logs.
Oh, absolutely. They beam back up with Darnell's body, and the whole atmosphere on the bridge just shifts. You can feel it in the log entries.
How so?
Well, you get Spock's reaction logical, detached. He says something like, Lieutenant, my demonstration of concern will not change what has happened.
Classic Spock.
Right. But that's contrasted sharply with Lieutenant Uhura's reaction. She's clearly distressed, confused, saying things like, somebody is dead and you just sit there. It could be Captain Kirk.
Highlighting the human fear, the uncertainty.
Exactly. Even as Spock stays logical, the logs capture that very real human cost and anxiety spreading through the crew.
So what's the first step in the investigation? The plant.
Yeah, the initial focus, based on Nancy's story and the plant being found near Darnell, is the Bora plant. Spock runs an analysis.
And what does he find?
The library records confirm it. Carbon group 3 vegetation, chemically similar to Earth nightshade, known to have an alkaloid poison.
Okay, so maybe Nancy was telling the truth.
Seems plausible at first, but Spock's report adds a critical detail. The records make no mention of the weird red mottling symptom they saw on Darnell's face.
So the known effects of the plant don't match what they observed.
Precisely. That's the first scientific hint that the plant might not be the whole story. Or maybe not the story at all.
So then McCoy does the autopsy.
Yes, and his findings, meticulously documented in the medical logs, are just stunning, completely outside any known medical science at the time.
What does he find? Or rather, what doesn't he find?
He specifically looks for that alkaloid poison, right? The stuff supposedly in the plant finds not a trace of it anywhere. Even though bits of the plant were near Darnell's mouth, McCoy is emphatic in the logs. Darnell could not have swallowed any.
Okay, so if it wasn't the plant poison, what killed him?
This is the bombshell. The critical, inexplicable findings stated right there in the medical report. Sodium chloride. Not a trace of it.
Sodium chloride. Salt.
Salt. Crewman Darnell had 0 salt left in his entire body.
No salt. Like,
yeah.
0. Is that even possible?
Yeah. According to McCoy's log entries, absolutely not. Think about human biology. You need salt for nerve function, muscle function, everything.
Right.
McCoy himself is quoted, clearly in disbelief. Medically impossible by any standards. He says based on all the tests, Darnell's body was otherwise fine. He should get up and just walk away from here.
Except for the missing salt.
Except for the complete lack of salt. But that lack was fatal. The report says death was due to salt depletion, a sudden total loss of it, which would kill almost instantly.
Instant death from no salt. That's unheard of.
Completely. McCoy is so shaken by it, the logs record him saying, "I'll have the test double-check. My eyes may be tricking me." It shows just how far beyond their experience this was.
Wow. So this impossible finding, does it connect back to those red marks on Darnell's face? The modeling?
It does. Kirk asks about it. Was it really modeling? And McCoy, based on the autopsy, has to backtrack. He admits, another error on my part. It wasn't a plant reaction.
It was a symptom.
Exactly, a symptom of whatever caused this sudden total salt depletion, something else entirely.
Okay, this is where Kirk starts connecting dots, right?
Yep. Kirk makes this crucial observation, noted in the logs. Both Nancy and Professor Crater, or the guy pretending to be Crater, went out of their way to mention one item they needed: salt tablets.
Ah, the weirdly specific request.
Suddenly connects directly to the bizarre, medically impossible cause of death. Complete salt depletion. It points right back at the craters and whatever's happening on M13.
So they check the ship's records on the craters.
They do. Quick database check, detailed in the logs, confirms they arrived almost 5 years ago. Various ships visited, they shipped artifacts and reports out. Initially, fairly heavy.
Initially?
Yeah, that's the key detail. The logs note a marked drop in shipments during the last year.
About a year ago, things changed down there.
Something definitely changed. Their activity level dropped off significantly, and that timeline starts to feel ominous, especially knowing what they learn later.
Okay, so now they have an impossible cause of death linked to the crater's specific need for salt, and evidence that something changed drastically about a year ago. What's Kirk's next move?
Back down to the planet, but this time it's different. The logs make that clear.
How so?
No more routine checkup language. They're described as being outfitted and beaming down with some questions. The landing party is Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and another crewman, Green. And crucially, the logs note they're armed.
This is an investigation now, maybe even an apprehension.
Definitely. Kirk even acknowledges the shift. When the guy posing as Crater again gets hostile, demanding they leave, Kirk says, "One might think that you had more important duties than harassing people. I have, Professor. Believe me, I have."
Setting the stage, this isn't a request anymore.
Not at all. It's a confrontation.
And is Crater still hostile?
Oh, even more so, according to the logs. Immediately demands they leave, yelling about trespass. He's armed, refuses to say where Nancy is. She's no concern of yours.
He's really doubling down.
He even threatens to kill them. Says he'll do whatever it takes to stay alone on the planet. His desperation to keep them away is just screaming guilty, or at least hiding something major.
It's way beyond normal researcher behavior.
Totally. And during this tense standoff, there's a quick but important sidebar in the logs.
Yeah.
They send a sample of that bora plant back up to Spock for a final definitive analysis.
Just to be absolutely sure.
Right. And the result comes back fast.
Yeah.
It is the standard bora variety. And Spock confirms, absolutely, it could not have caused Darnell's death.
So the plant is officially ruled out. It's all about the salt.
100%. Which leads Kirk to confront the imposter Crater directly with the autopsy results.
How does that go?
Kirk lays it out. Darnell died from salt depletion, a sudden total loss of it, medically impossible. And he points out the coincidence of their constant salt requests.
And how does Crater react to that?
Yeah.
Impossible medical evidence.
He just dismisses it, calls the findings impossible, tries to brush off the salt thing. He even shows them their remaining salt supply, like, see, we just use a lot because it's hot. He totally refuses to engage with the facts.
Which just makes him look even more suspicious.
Exactly. So Kirk makes the call. He states his decision, citing his authority and the suspicious death. Professor and Mrs. Crater must come aboard the Enterprise for a couple of days, until this death is understood.
He's detaining them, basically.
Pretty much. And the guy's reaction, pure panic, according to the logs. But you can't do that. You mustn't do it, claiming it'll mess up their work. He's desperate not to go aboard the ship.
But Kirk insists.
Kirk holds firm. But I can, Professor. Decision made.
And then what happens? Does he comply?
Nope. The moment Kirk gives the order to prep for transport, the guy posing as crater bolts just runs off into the ruins. McCoy initially thinks maybe he's just panicked and needs salt. McCoy's carrying tablets, calls out, "He's run off! Fonse, use salt! I've got salt! Smell it!" Weird phrasing. There may be an error in the log transcription, or just McCoy being frantic.
Hans, okay. Maybe hands have your salt or something. Anyway, McCoy chases him.
Yeah, but he doesn't find the panicked professor needing salt. He finds another body.
Oh, no. Not Nancy.
No. Chillingly, the logs state he finds the real Professor Crater. Dead.
The real one. How do they know?
Same horrifying symptoms. The telltale red rings on his face, and presumably confirmed later the same impossible total salt depletion that killed Darnell.
Whoa. So the man they were just talking to
was not Robert Crater. He was an imposter, something else entirely.
And they were about to beam that thing onto their ship.
Exactly. That's the horrifying realization hitting them, right there in the logs. The danger wasn't just a hostile researcher. It was something deadly, capable of perfect mimicry, and it almost got aboard.
The situation just went critical.
Absolutely critical. And it gets worse when they get back to the Enterprise.
How?
Kirk, McCoy, and Crewman Green beam back up, bringing the body the bomb mentioned. Another crewman, Sturgeon, found dead nearby with the same symptoms around the same time as Crater.
So multiple victims now on the planet's surface.
Yes. And ship's sensors immediately detect only one life sign left down there, just circling their position. And crucially, they can't locate Mrs. Crater because, well...
she wasn't real either. It was the creature all along.
That's what they're starting to piece together. The threat seems singular now, elusive, still on the planet, or so they think.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Then comes the truly terrifying discovery. Crewman Green, the guy who just beamed up with Kirk and McCoy, found him on Deck 9, aboard the ship.
No.
Same red rings, same impossible salt depletion.
What aboard?
It followed them. The logs deduce it almost instantly.
Yeah.
It must have mimicked Green during the beam-up, used his appearance to walk right onto the Enterprise.
The threat is inside. It could be anyone.
Exactly. And that triggers immediate chaos. Ship-wide alerts General Quarters, Security Condition 3, then 4. Intruder alert.
Lockdown.
Total lockdown. Hulls sealed, weapons locked down so the creature can't get them, and a frantic ship-wide search begins. The tension in the operational logs is just, you can feel it. They're hunting something that could look like their closest friend.
And do they figure out how it does the shape-shifting?
Yes, that gets confirmed technically. Sulu reports from the transporter room. After analyzing the beam-up signatures, he confirms it's definite. The intruder can assume any shape. Crewman, you, myself, anyone. Do you understand?
So it's confirmed. Perfect mimicry. It physically changes.
That's the horrifying confirmation. It explains the Nancy discrepancies perfectly. It's not an illusion. It becomes whoever it wants.
So they're searching deck by deck.
Desperately. Security teams checking Deck 5, 710 engineering, showing photos of the landing party, trying to spot the fake Green or whoever it might be now.
Anyone could be the creature.
Right. The logs even note Uhura realizing the Green she saw briefly earlier seemed off. She says, "I thought there was something twitchy about him. Maybe a tiny flaw in the mimicry. Or just her intuition."
So where do they find it?
Yeah.
Or him. The Crater imposter form.
They'd track it down eventually, still in the form of the Crater imposter, hiding in the real Crater's lab on the ship.
Okay. Confrontation time again.
Yeah. Kirk confronts it, still trying to get answers, demanding to know about the real Nancy. Where is she?
And does the creature finally talk?
It does. And this is where the logs record its chilling confession, its true nature. It confirms, "I am not Crater. It was the creature."
So what is it?
It describes itself in these really tragic terms. She was the last of her kind, the last of its kind.
The last one?
Yeah. It draws this parallel to Earth's extinct species, asking Kirk if he remembers the passenger pigeon, the buffalo. Once there were millions, now there's one left. It paints itself as the sole survivor facing extinction.
Wow, okay. And the salt.
It confirms that's its core need. They needed salt to stay alive. Well, the crew later calls it a salt vampire. It literally needs sodium chloride from other beings to live.
Which explains the deaths. It drains the salt.
Exactly, and it explains how it shifts shape, linking it directly to emotion and need.
How so?
It says it doesn't use tricks. It becomes the person someone needs love as much as it needs salt.
Whoa.
It became Nancy for Crater because he loved the real Nancy because she lived in my dreams. It implies it could access his deepest longings.
That's incredibly invasive. And manipulative.
Terrifyingly so. It explains it became wife, lover, best friend, fool, idol, slave, for Crater whatever he needed. It offered him a private heaven where he could win all the arguments, have everyone at his beck and call.
In exchange for his life force, basically. His salt.
Pretty much. A deeply seductive, deadly power.
And the real Nancy. What happened to her?
The creature confirms the awful truth. It killed her a year ago. She's buried up on the hill back on M13.
A year. So that matches the drop in shipments.
Exactly. The creature had been living with Crater, posing as his dead wife, draining his salt slowly, keeping him in that private heaven for a whole year.
Which means Crater knew. He was complicit.
That's what the creature implies, speaking through Crater's form. It explains Crater protected it. He apparently almost destroyed it right after it killed Nancy, but then he chose not to.
Why? Why protect the thing that killed his wife?
Because he saw it as intelligent and the last of its kind. He made a conscious choice to preserve this unique alien species, even at the cost of, well, everything.
That's a heavy choice.
The creature, still as Crater, even taunts Kirk about it, calls him too pure and noble, trying to frame it differently. But the question hangs there in the logs. Was Crater really saving the last of a species? Or was he just lost in his own grief, his denial, living in a fantasy enabled by the creature, his private heaven?
It's a really disturbing ethical gray area.
Definitely. And the creature, still talking as Crater, pushes this ethical dilemma further. It argues for its right to exist. It says it's just trying to survive, that it has that right. It even claims it's not dangerous when fed, hinting maybe there's a non-lethal way, though the logs don't really explore that.
Probably not something Crater was practicing.
Doesn't seem like it. It argues its shapeshifting is just a natural ability, like a chameleon's camouflage or human muscles. A survival tool. It calls itself an intelligent animal.
So it's capable of reason.
It implies it is. And then as Crater, it asks Kirk, there's no need to hunt it down, suggesting maybe some kind of coexistence is possible if its needs are met non-violently. Like the danger is just hunger, not malice.
But does it offer to cooperate? To prove that?
And that's the crucial turn. Right after making this case for understanding and coexistence, Kirk asks point blank, have you learned to recognize its true form? Will you help us find it on the ship? Stop the killing.
And the creature, as Crater says.
Sorry, I can't. Just like that. Flat refusal.
So much for peaceful coexistence. That refusal seals its fate, really.
Pretty much. With a killer loose that can be anyone and refusing to help, Kirk and McCoy can't risk waiting. They need to act.
What's the plan? They have it cornered, right? In Crater's form.
They do. And McCoy, according to the medical logs, suggests using truth serum on the captured imposter. Try to force it to reveal its true nature or location or maybe a weakness.
Truth serum, is that standard?
McCoy notes his own resistance to using it normally, but argues the extreme danger justifies it here. Kirk agrees. It seems like their only shot at getting actionable intel.
But they don't get to use it, do they?
Nope. Before they can administer it, the creature, still as Crater, makes its move, attacks Kirk, tries to grab his phaser.
It fights back.
Violently. Kirk yells out, realizing instantly, it wasn't McCoy, it was the creature. It hit me. He knows this is the entity. There's a struggle, a phaser discharge is heard in the logs, and Kirk confirms, Professor Crater, dead.
So they killed the Crater form?
Yes. But then there's this really weird final line from the creature, still speaking with Crater's voice even as that form dies.
What does it say?
It boasts, fortunately, my ancestors spawn under another ocean than yours did. My blood salts are quite different.
What does that even mean? Like, its salt is different. It's immune to its own attack. Or phasers don't work the same.
They're baffling. Maybe a taunt, maybe a clue to its unique biology. Maybe it just means standard phaser settings aren't fully effective, or its physiology is just fundamentally alien. The logs don't clarify, but the Crater form is definitely gone.
And the creature itself is loose again, somewhere else on the ship.
Exactly. Its cover is blown, it's likely weakened or injured from the phaser, and it desperately needs salt.
So it goes hunting again.
Makes one last desperate attempt. And it targets McCoy.
Why McCoy?
Because of Nancy. It knows his deep emotional connection. It morphs into her form, appears as Nancy, pleading, please help me, Leonard, they're trying to kill me.
Oh, that's cruel. Using his love for her against him.
utterly cruel. It plays on his feelings, follows him towards the dispensary where it knows medical supplies, maybe saline salt would be.
And this is the final showdown.
The emotional climax, yeah. The logs capture it starkly. McCoy sees Nancy, torn. Kirk is yelling, "She's not Nancy Bones, are you insane?" trying to break through the illusion.
But McCoy hesitates.
He struggles. He even defends the form initially, echoing its pleas. "You're frightening her, Jim. Don't let them kill me."
And the creature pushes it.
Oh, yeah. As Nancy, it says, "Leonard, if you love me, make him go away." And then adds this chilling line about his feelings. "I like your feelings better, much stronger." It's literally feeding on his emotions or finding them potent fuel.
Horrifying. How does Kirk break through?
Kirk cuts through the manipulation. He sees the desperation behind the act. Not fright, hunger, look at her. He recognizes the biological need driving it.
And then he uses that need
as bait. He calls out to the Nancy form, "You want it, Nancy, come and get it." Holding out salt, maybe? The logs aren't specific on what it is, but it's clearly the salt the creature craves.
forcing the creature's hand or tentacle, whatever it has.
Exactly. The final struggle is raw. Kirk is yelling for McCoy to shoot. McCoy resists. Kirk forces the issue, yelling, "Is that Nancy, Doctor? No. No. Heat. Heat. Let it know."
Heat, like a phaser setting, or just its true nature.
Could be either. Maybe telling McCoy to use a specific setting, or maybe just trying to get him to see past the illusion to the deadly consuming heat of the creature's hunger. Whatever it means, it works. McCoy finally shoots. Phaser on. Heat.
And that's it.
The creature cries out, then dies. The logs record McCoy's immediate reaction, just devastated. He whispers, "Martin, forgive me."
Martin? Who's Martin? That seems random.
It does, doesn't it? It's jarring. Maybe the creature's probing dredged up some other deep guilt or memory, someone named Martin connected to a past failure or loss. Or maybe just a sign of his profound distress, grasping for some kind of absolution after killing the image of Nancy. The logs don't explain, but it shows the deep emotional scar this leaves on him.
So the creature's gone. The threat is over.
Over, yes. Mission accomplished, technically. But the cost, tallied in the reports, is heavy. 4 crewmen dead, Darnell, Green, Sturgeon, the unnamed one on Deck 9, plus the real Professor Crater.
A high price for a routine checkup.
Undeniably.
And Kirk has some final thoughts on it.
Yeah, there's a poignant note in the log right after. He's talking to Spock, just says quietly, "I was thinking about the buffalo, Mr. Spock."
Comparing the creature to the extinct buffalo on Earth.
Exactly. Connecting this specific alien tragedy, wiping out the last member of a species, to something familiar, something resonant about loss and finality. Even for a dangerous creature, its extinction is noted as a tragedy in itself.
So looking back at all this through the logs, what are the big takeaways for us, for you, listening?
Well, first, there's that fundamental question about reality and perception. How could one single being look so completely different to different people, based purely on their own minds, their memories, their needs?
Right. It makes you question how much of what we see is truly objective versus how much is shaped by our own internal landscape.
Definitely. And then there's the whole ethical quagmire.
The creature's argument for survival, did it have a right, being the last one, even if survival meant killing?
And Crater's choice. Protecting it, hiding it after it killed his wife. Was that misguided love? Scientific preservation, or just profound, dangerous denial? The logs present his actions, but the judgment is complex.
And McCoy's struggle really highlights the power of emotion, right? His feelings for Nancy almost got him, and maybe others killed. It shows how potent those deep connections can be, sometimes overriding logic or even survival instincts.
Absolutely. And finally, Kirk's buffalo comment brings it home, the tragedy of extinction. Even when the species is a threat, there's a sadness in knowing something unique is gone forever from the universe.
Yeah. This whole incident documented in the logs, it leaves you with a lot to chew on. A routine mission turns into this nightmare encounter, driven by biological need, wrapped in layers of perception, ethics, emotion.
It really does, and it makes you wonder. Based on the creature's own words in the logs, intelligent, maybe not dangerous if fed, wanting to survive, could there possibly have been another way? Could negotiation or understanding have been reached given time?
Or, considering the deaths and its flat refusal to help find itself, was destroying it the only option? Was it necessary self-defense, or the final unavoidable act in eliminating a species? The records don't give us an easy answer there.
And what about Crater's responsibility? He knew what it was, knew it killed Nancy, yet he actively protected it, lied, let the danger fester, and ultimately spread to the Enterprise. how much of the subsequent tragedy falls on his shoulders.
Could things have gone differently if he'd acted sooner?
Maybe. Or maybe the biggest question it leaves you with is, how much are our own perceptions of people, everyone we meet, shaped by us? By our needs, our memories, our desires? Are we all just seeing reflections like Kirk, McCoy, and Darnell did when they first met that creature? Seeing what we need or expect or remember instead of just what's truly there?
That is.
Yeah.
That's a pretty disquieting thought to end on.